What's up? My name's Jay, and we're doing a mixed rundown of Sillhouette, JLR's first single. So, we recorded this at ALA, and we got the stems from the board. So, that's always a fun place to start. You never really know what your recording quality is going to be, but luckily we got awesome recording from Mike Bangs, which is the most baller ass sound guy name. So we got everyone's recordings just from the board, and everything was in a great quality. So everything sounded good just to begin with, which always helps a lot. So to start off with, on every mix, I usually group my drums. I group the sort of chord instruments together into one bus, and then any of the extra stuff that's not vocals. And then this vocal mic is really just extra drums because it was live recorded. So if we listen to it, yeah. There we go. Here, I can turn it up a little bit. So it's sort of a room mic. Every so often on Gabe will talk.
Can we clap, y'all?
There we go. Hi, Gabe. So the first thing I do after I group, so I guess the second thing I do is I get everything that was live and not DI. So I usually exclude the keys. The guitars were DI, bass was DI. So I get everything that had a live mic on stage, including this, and I run it through, I'll show you this super cool plugin, AutoLine. AutoLine is a lifesaver. I used to do everything by hand like an idiot, but now you can just throw it on everything that you need. If you throw it here, and then that'll give you your 2 tracks. I said that'll give you your 2 tracks. Whatever, it's being weird. If we throw it on literally anything. Well, this is funny. Anyways, don't need to get into it. It gives you the 2 tracks. You just click a line, you play it, and it just goes. And then it just tightens everything up so you no longer have any phase issues. And you do want to do it on everything, every live mic, because you're gonna be 3/4 of the way through your mix, and you're like, oh shoot, I had this live amp that I forgot to align, and that's why everything just sounds like garbage. And the more tight you get everything, as soon as you mix more, the more phase issues are gonna become apparent. So you want to get that done as soon as possible. So for live stuff, I try not to do much cleaning of our performances because I want to sort of keep the performances as they were, because it's a live thing. Studio, I'll do a little bit more. So there might be a couple of things that you sort of nudge just a little bit, because people like hearing a more perfect sound when they're listening to something recorded. So I don't mind helping out a little bit. Everyone's a baller player. So yeah, this one was fun because I actually unbussed the kick. So let's go through drums first. Drums, after I got everything down, I usually don't do too much processing on each drum channel. You see this hi-hat had nothing, it was just panned. The rack toms, your toms, I gate them, and because this is more of a gospel inspired music, I wanted to gate the toms or compress the toms so we could have those moments come out, just so they hit a little bit harder. Just felt more in the style. Overheads, I'll usually do just a big low cut. Sometimes if the overheads aren't super wonderfully sounding. Yeah, here's just the left. I'll do a little bit of like high. So this one actually didn't get a low cut because I was lazy, I guess. So sometimes they'll do a little high boost. Oh, I know why. So there's no excuse for the low cut, but I think this left overhead was a little louder, or a little quieter, sorry, than the right overhead. It was just mismatched in gain just a little bit, or maybe it got knocked over, because I would assume that the mic bangs would have gain corrected at some point. But yeah, so I think it just got knocked down, and it was just like, it's live, so you got a bunch of other stuff you don't really need to worry about. So yeah, and I have a little compressor on that, just so the overhead kind of like comes out more, and it balances a little bit, because a lot of this stuff is like right pan, the snare is, and everything, sounds wimpy in isolation, but once you get it all, it really hits better. And then another big thing about the drums, I'll throw a compressor on the drum bus, just super light processing. I usually route my room reverb to 16 just because it's easier to remember. And then I was trying a bunch of stuff to get a nice sidechain compression, and I actually cut most of it and just got just normal sidechain. So this one is low cut, and it's like kind of smashed, you can see. So that gives the drums that just like little bit more oomph. And then the big thing to get the kick more forward was you take it out of the bus, and you put it just straight into the outs with everything, and that sort of gives the illusion of, it just pushes it forwarder in the mix. So if we were to put it in, you can sort of hear it's not as present as it was. It's a little whippier. You bring it out, yeah, it's getting all that au jus out into everything. And then this bus 32 is usually where I throw my my kick side chain. So that one, you just bust it out, and then you just don't throw it anywhere. So it's reading the out, you see there, but it's not getting anything. It's not actually outputting any noise. That way you have a little bit more control, and then you can use that to sidechain with the bass. So the kick is just will cut at around 20. This one's at 15 because you can't hear anything that low anyway, really, and it just makes everything muddier. This was to get a little like presence boost, if you see it. That's just to get more kick, and then that's to get more presence, and then we cut it at some point because it is a live mic and you don't need everything out there. So that is the drums for that. It's a pretty simple drums. The only thing really fun is the kick outside of the drum bus. So yeah, next up is bass, and the bass got some love. Just to make it more full, because this was, if we turn this all off, it's very, very like live, very correct for the style for live. This Gabe's tone here is very bitey, very aggressive, very forward, and with the help from the amp and the actual sound of like the room and the PA and the way that sound like waves are created and move in a room, this tone becomes much larger than what's recorded. So all of this is just sort of to give that that depth back to the tone to make it sound more like how it was recorded. So here's the EQ, and that's just a low cut, and then a little bit of like a grittiness remover at 800. It's a little above the magic bass frequency of 750 for presence. Here is a compressor. This one, I like throwing FET compressors on bass and guitars, just on like the strings. This one's not. It's pretty compressed. It's not too bad. So this is all just sort of cleaning up the attack, and then we're feeding that into the Ampeg SVTVR. This is the only bass model plugin I have, so it gets used a lot. But it sounds great. I haven't really been like, oh man, I need something else. Or if I needed something else, I can just use a real bass amp. But for all this, I think it sounds wonderful. Then we have our sidechain from the kick. This one's a little bit less of a sidechain because there's so much going on. We don't really need to slam this. They're both pretty busy patterns. So you want to make sure they're working together, but you don't want to have one bury the other. And here's another compressor. And then here's a gain plugin, because as I am working on these mixes, not so much for this one, I'll work on a mix and get a lot of automation done, and then the client will want something changed, something brought forward, something pushed back. But I don't really want to like redo all the automation, so I'll just slap a gain plugin on the top of it. So this one I actually didn't use. Wow. So this goes to show you should really clean up your files before you show them to people. But that's usually what this was. I think it was used at one point and I just never got rid of it. So yeah, so that's the bass and drums together. And already you can see with just that, it has just more of a body, more of a bottom end. So it takes up a little bit more room. You get some like frequency masking on some of the upper structure stuff, like the chords and the horns. But you want that. That's sort of what you hear that in live too. So you want that like big low end with the kick and the bass. So next up, here's the band. Let's get out of our automation so everything's a little easier to see. So this one, I liked panning everything because there was video shot. So I tried to sort of pan it how we were on stage, with me being, as you're looking, the farthest left. Same thing with drums. I sort of like panning it as it appears for the most part, but it's a little different because you compress drums so much, so it doesn't really translate in the same way. Compressing it just sort of makes the sonic space it takes up smaller, so it's not like you're not hearing a cymbal all the way on this side, and then you have like another cymbal or your snare like all the way over here next to a guitar. Like it cleans it up a little bit, the compression. But anyways, so here's me on the far side. Josh is a little bit in front of me, then Mark, and then Eric's keyboard was over there. So that's just how we pan this. And then if we so yeah, this is a classic JLR intro. If you listen, it's just all groove, all chops, all heck yeah. And I think that's what makes this band so fun. To without a better phrase, just the D's out all the time. So we'll start from the bottom. Eric didn't get much because he's really only playing during Harry's solo. So he got a little bit of a compressor because he's not really in it that much. So I didn't really work too hard on his sound for this track. Next up is Mark. Mark got a little bit more love. Mark got a compressor before the EQ because the way that the EQ was interacting with his tone before the compressor, it made it sound too compressed. So I threw it on afterwards to sort of like, if you'll see here, you give it a little bit more air, you take some of the mids out, you cut the lows. So instead of doing that before and then compressing that sound, it just made it sound a little bit more real. So I can show you. Here is. And we do it this way. Just feels a little too compressed that way to me. I don't know if you could hear it. It may be like, what's it called? What is the when the like fake medicine, placebo? It might be placebo, but it makes me feel better about the mix. And yeah, so he got kind of compressed on this. This is a little keyboard preset because I think it sounds good. And then here's his EQ because he's in mono. I didn't do too much EQing, just shoved him over. And then he got some gain. He actually got minus gain. He started off much hotter in the track, but we kept needing to pull him back. So, yeah, here's my track. I just cut the lows. I'm with so much other instruments going on. My part is usually supposed to be felt like a guitar player in a big band, so that's what cutting all the lows is. It sort of makes it less present, and I cut a little bit of the harshness out up here. And by not compressing it, it makes it sit sort of behind a little bit better. Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. And then we have Josh, who got some gain before everything to bring his track up so it would hit his EQ and his compressor. And this is a pretty standard guitar EQ, especially for a modeler. You want to cut up around 10K because guitar amps don't really produce that amount of frequency. So, yeah, you cut that all out. It makes it sound more natural. You cut the lows because the more lows that you can cut out of stuff without it impacting it, the better your mix sounds. Because of frequency masking, which is if you have a lot of frequencies down here, if you have a lot of, let's say, 30, that is going to impact, that's going to take away the space for everything that's sitting at 60, everything that's sitting at 120, everything that's sitting at 240. It takes up more space because of the way a sound wave is made. If we play it, you can sort of see the way that is. So sound waves have like harmonic frequencies that double as they get louder or as they get higher. Each octave is just a doubled frequency. So you have A440, that's 440 hertz per second, so 440 like vibrations. I don't know, I'm not a physicist, but like 220 is another A, 110 is another A, 55 is another A. So all these A's are like different things, but if you play an A at 55, it'll still resonate at 110, at 220, at 440, at 880. So that's why you want to cut a lot of your lows from your tracks because of that. That's just going to remove a lot of the frequencies that are like building up, and it's just going to create more room, and it's going to clean up a lot of your tracks, so it makes them sound less money, more professional. So yeah, that's your standard sort of guitar EQ, and then he just got a compressor on there, just slapped on to sort of bring it a little bit more forward. And then everyone was pretty automationless because everyone was playing really strong, really dynamic. Horns got a little bit, but yeah. So, and then the band, I like having a band bus, and the band bus starts with a lot of stuff in it, but slowly I will take more instruments out of them and push them other places. So we got a little bit of gain and then a compressor. So the gain was to let the compressor hit it, and then we really wanted this mix to be kick forward. We wanted the kick to sort of, you feel it in your chest. So our whole band bus is being sidechain compressed just a little bit by the kick as well, sort of similar to Gabe's bass. So this has helped pushing the kick really, really forward in the mix. And that was very desirable for this song. You want to sort of feel it. So yeah, so that's our band bus. If we go up, here's our horns. And then the horns got some love. So we'll start with Lawrence. So talking about the little bit of editing I did do. So this is another plugin called Vocal Align. It is not the same as Auto Align. You have to buy them both with real American dollars, which is a huge bummer. But this works better on not drums, not percussive stuff that's it's for vocals, but you can use it for horns, and that will tighten up the horn. So if you see here, let's get out of automation view. So this, like, you can see their attack is not quite the same. So if you have the vocal align, it saves me from having to re-articulate, like drag all of their stuff together. It'll just sort of like sloop it together, and you have to sort of edit it, but it does a pretty good job. It does a really great job with vocals. You can tie a whole choir together and make it sound like one voice, but I mean, within reason, but it does pretty good on this. So this, I'm pretty sure we were just going to Harry. Yeah. We're going to Harry. So, and that's just to tie all of these horns together. So these attacks are the same. They were already very close, so you can't like make magic happen, but you can clean up little tiny things. So Lawrence really just got a big EQ. He got a little bit of tenor sax love and dropped in the highs, so it wasn't too harsh because I don't think he really ever did a lot of lead stuff, and when he did do the lead stuff, it would poke through with automation anyway. So yeah, and then we have Eric, who got sort of the reverse of Lawrence's EQ, if you see that. That is just to sort of fit them together in a section better. So Eric was playing alto, so he got a little bit of his mids cut out, and then the leads, or the higher harmonics are sort of boosted. So that's pushing him a little bit more forward because, again, of how the way sound works. The farther away you get from something, the more the higher frequencies die off because they're so fast moving that they can't travel as far. They just don't move as far. So that's why if you're at a festival, you can hear the bass from like 3 miles away, but you can't hear like the drums, or you can sort of hear the drums, but you can't hear any of the like vocals or the high stuff. You know what I'm talking about. So that's sort of how sound works, and that's a way that we can create space in our mixes, is by sort of understanding that. So if you want something to be a little bit more forward, you can boost its highs. And this is all just to help everything sort of sit together in the bus so you can hear everything individually. So it sounds like a section, but you can still hear each instrument if you like concentrate. So here's a fun thing. If you want, close your eyes. I'm going to mute one, and then you're going to see what's missing. And then here's the other one. So muting that, you see there's a lot of room left over. That's the way it's EQ'd. So like this one, it feels a little unsupported to me without the tenor in there. And this one feels a little thin. Feels a little empty because we're losing the alto. We're losing the sort of like what's the most present thing. So that's a little EQ fun. And then here's Harry. Harry is a trumpet, so he doesn't follow the same EQ rules as the saxophone. Everyone gets a low cut. So this one is to give more warmth and presence to his sound, and then he also gets the high boost. So if we look at everyone's EQ, so this way we sort of have everyone has their own little spot that they can sit in. Harry's, the trumpet, is holding the sort of lowest part of the frequency. He's boosted there, which doesn't sound like it makes sense because he's the highest instrument in this, but his tone is different. It doesn't sort of, like, in my mind, the saxophones, when they're together, they like build with each other. But if you can hear that, Wilton is starving to death, so she's like, where's my food? It's 5:00. She's gonna wait just a little bit. So Harry actually gets some mid boosts because of his instrument, and you want it to sound warmer. You want it to be sort of the welcome to my house. You want it to be sort of the character of the sound of the horn section. And then here is our bus. So I do a lot of processing on the bus. That's just a mid boost to make it. This is to make everything sit a little bit more forward in our mix. A little bit more present with our mids. Here's a compressor. This is a LA2A. This is the optical compressor, so it's just sort of gluing everything together. If I had an SSL bus compressor, I'd probably be using it here. But I use the LA2A as sort of my main glue compressor. So that's what it's doing here. It's making everything sort of sound like it's in the same room. Here's Soothe, which is another really cool plugin. It's basically like a really super targeted what's it called? Dynamic EQ mixed with like a multi-band compressor, but it basically just does magic. To be completely honest, I haven't really dug into the deep functionality of it outside of just like sort of understanding what it does. but even the presets are just really strong and they're very like descriptive. So a lot of them sound really great. A lot of the vocal ones, to me, don't really do as good as like the mastering or the bus stuff. I think the songwriting, the let's just record it with my iPhone is one of my favorite ones because it really cleans up like terrible recordings. So if you do like podcast stuff, this is a really great stuff for recording like things that are recorded on AirPods or computer microphones. But yeah, Soothe is a really cool EQ plugin, and it basically just like works magic. And then here's a gain because we're sort of pushing it a little bit. And just another thing about the gains late in the chain. Hey. Sorry, Wilton's going kind of crazy over there. So another thing's about the gain late in the chain. I usually add those after something goes through some like revisions. And it's like, I have a note, can we do this? I have a note, can we do this? I have a note, can we do this? And then the note is like, oh, wait, can we actually do this? And it gets a little messy sometimes, and you don't really want to like restructure your compressors all the time. So you have your gains, and that sort of like helps with the late stage placement of things. So yeah, and then here's Gabe's mic. That's just there because of a room sound. If it wasn't there, you would miss it, but you wouldn't notice it was gone. So yeah. So the last cool thing before Wilton eats me alive is for Harry's trumpet solo, I remove that from the bus. Same reason that the kick isn't in the bus. It just helps it move it forward. And then as soon as the trumpet solo is over, it comes right back. Like you could do that with automation, but like, why? If you could see, there's Wilton. She's starving to death. It is 4 minutes past her dinner time. So, yeah, that's just a little cheap trick to bring things forward. So, yeah. So, last big thing is our reverbs. So, these Bus 16, as I said, is my reverb. That's our room reverb. I use the Valhalla stuff. I usually love doing the 70s reverb, but I think for a live video, you don't want that much like chorus like modulations that the 70s does, even though I think it sounds cool. So this is a really big reverb because we were playing in a really big room, and I wanted to capture that that sound, that feeling in the recording. I wanted it to sound big, especially when we get the video out. Then when we have a lot of very like theatrical moments, big like pans, we're playing a big stage, so you want it to sort of sound big with it. So yeah, it's pretty heavy. The last little thing is I did automate this room a little bit because
Take on
we didn't want as much
favorite
reverb on the
called
drums
Sillhouette.
at the top. There's just a little too much. But when everything comes in, you kind of want all the reverb. So that was just a little automation there. Yeah. And it really makes that snare kick out. And yeah, and so if you remember that snare track, yeah. So there we go. There's the mix for this one. This is a fun project to work on because we recorded maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 songs. Um, so it's fun to get them all in the same room. We'll be working in the same like sort of sounds, but it still wants to be live. So, and you would imagine a sound guy like Mike Banks would be mixing stuff live. So it's okay for things to change as it goes. So yeah, so that is Silhouette, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to leave a comment, send me a message. Yeah, if you want any help on your mixes, or if you want me to mix things for you, I would love to. Yeah, thanks for checking out the video. I appreciate it. All right, see ya later.